They just had some facts to throw out there, but not a story behind it. So the prosecutor gets up. He essentially asks the lieutenant if he has a theory. I could have objected. I was about to object. He's essentially asking this officer to just speculate as to what he thinks happened. And I don't think it would have survived the objection, but I sat in my seat and I waited because I want to hear this too. At this point, Lieutenant Zappala begins to talk about how he thinks it went down is that the accuser was being robbed and gets out of the car to run. As he does so, he drops his own weapon, and Jaden begins walking down the street behind him, firing several times, one time hitting in the back, up and down the street. And he says he believes this because the spent casings are zigzagged up and down the street on both sides of the street, it appeared to him, and on and on and on. The other thing he's asked about is, and your listeners need to know, is there was an eyewitness. There was a gentleman who was driving the vehicle. They knew about this gentleman driving the vehicle the night of the incident. They heard from a neighbor who had a Ring video camera of the vehicle speeding off. They never even take the tape. They don't look at the tape. They don't look to identify the driver. They don't look to identify who's even in the vehicle, if anyone. They don't even look to identify the vehicle. One of the questions comes up during the trial is whether or not there's a car being driven by my client or a SUV being driven by another person. The officer's excuse as to why they don't seek out this driver is because he's difficult. He doesn't have much respect for law enforcement. They're familiar with him. And interviewing him, they didn't think would do any good. That's what we had on redirect. So that set up a beautiful moment for me to confront this officer and ask him some questions. And that being about his background and his expertise. And what I essentially asked him is if he, his training, does he have any particular training in interviewing? And of course he does. Does he have any particular training in interviewing difficult witnesses? Well, of course he does, including witnesses that might have poor thoughts when it comes to law enforcement. All those questions are yes. He's trained in specific techniques. We even talked about different techniques and the names of those techniques. Then I asked him about his training when it came to crime scene development investigation.